Yes, hello everyone and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to another edition of Around the WAFL. 2 rounds to go. The race for the finals is well and truly heating up as we head into round 19. Some very important games coming up and we're looking forward to previewing them with you here today on Around the WAFL. You're listening to us on wherever you get your podcasts and also watching on the BackChat Studios YouTube channel. Paul Persick with you, and alongside me, once I said last week, a man with a license to thrill, and he's now affectionately known as 007, as the evidence in the shirt that he is wearing today. Mark Foreman, how are you, for you?
Well, thanks, Paul. You like the shirt?
Yes, I do. 007, a little bit of James Bond and Buffalo Bill. Yes, the famous ice cream.
See what they've done there?
Yes, they have.
Clever, isn't it?
Absolutely.
No, I don't know. I just saw this shirt this morning. Thought I'd whack it on. Good to be here again, and looking forward to like you said, 2 rounds to go, and unbelievable that we have 3 teams locked on 44 points from second to fourth, and then still the race for fifth is heating up as well. So a really good finish to the 2023 season.
Yeah, and as I said, very important games coming up in round 19 that could decide the shape of the 5. In a moment, we'll have a chat to Swan Districts coach Andrew Pruyn. His side has got a big game against Claremont at Revo Fitness Stadium on Saturday. But before we do, we just want to remind you that every single game in round 19 is live, free and in full on the AFL app. You can watch anytime, any place, anywhere. This is Around the WAFL, the official podcast of the West Australian Football League. Swan Districts still alive in that fight for the 5 with 2 rounds still to go. They've got a big game coming up against Claremont. They had a cracking game back in round 6 earlier in the season. Will we see another? Swan Districts, they've played a great brand of footy over the last month. They're aiming for 5 wins in a row, and their coach, Andrew Pruyn, he's been good enough to join us here today on Around the WAFL. Andrew, hello mate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, how you going, boys?
Going very well. Great to have you here on the show. Swan Districts, has to be said, they are playing a brilliant brand of footy and coming into some good form just at the right time.
Yeah, the boys are just starting to get some continuity within the group. I suppose early on we were sort of decimated with injury and sort of had lots of changes week to week. In the last sort of month or so, we've been able to steady the side a little bit and, yeah, starting to see the reward for that.
Andrew, I've been looking forward to chatting to you for quite some time because there's one of my favourite awards, not just in football, but in world sport. Tell us, A, about your interaction and your importance with Swan District supporters, and B, lead us into the Golden Grunt. Can you tell us a little bit about those two?
Yeah, I mean, the Swan District supporters are arguably the most dedicated, loudest, one-sided group of people that you're ever going to come across, and we love them for it. And the boys on the outer with the Golden Grunt Award, they're probably the leaders of the pack, really. They're rain, hail, shine, they're there, they're invested, and we love them for it. The Golden Grunt Award's a small group of boys that feel kind enough to reward our players out of their own sort of hard-earned. And, yeah, they come every week to our home games and present an award, not always for the best player, but for a player that they feel has demonstrated, enough to warrant an award that they put up every week. It's fantastic for them.
And no doubt there's going to be a lot of those players that are going to show a lot of grunt in this game against Claremont on Saturday. Of course, those sides met in an absolute cracker back in round 6, expecting the same intense physical brand of footy that Claremont are pretty much known to show everywhere around Australia.
Claremont are just a fantastic side. They with their list and balance between experience and youth, and they're a terrific side, and expect nothing else but a really tough fought sort of close game. It's something that we're steeling ourselves for, knowing what they're going to bring. They've got a lot to play for, especially at this time of the year. We're ready and eager to get down to Claremont Oval and try and get a win.
Andrew, tell us a little bit about Tom Edwards. So, look, we know he can find the footy. He had 6 shots at goal on the weekend. Unfortunately, didn't kick all that straight, but I'm more interested about his character. He obviously missed a shot after the siren earlier in the year to win a game, but seemingly didn't bother him because he's then got an opportunity, later in the year and nailed it. He seems to be a confident young player who, we know has a lot of ability, but seems to have a lot of resilience.
Tommy Edwards is an absolute beauty. Terrific young fella. And yeah, that Subiaco game, he probably hit him pretty hard when he had his shot after the siren to miss. But, you know, he's really responded and grown both on the field, but probably off the field as well. Like his leadership around the group, and he's really come of age this year. And, you know, he's being rewarded for a really hard pre-season where he got his body quite fit. He's got a pretty good aerobic tank, and yeah, we certainly love his aerial acts and his ability to climb over the top of people and find the ball somehow. But you know, he's really taken his game to the next level just through to his hard work and dedication.
Now, just before we let you go, Andrew, it's going to be a battle in the midfield, it has to be said. Claremont, stacked midfield, they got plenty of depth. So do your side, the Swans. Looking at these four players in particular, Turner, McLaughlin, Clark and Pina, could those four really hold the key at Revo Fitness Stadium on Saturday?
Yeah, well, Jarv is under a little bit of an injury cloud at the moment. He's got a little bit of an issue with his knee, so hopefully we can get him back. But I think those, yeah, absolutely, like the four you mentioned, throw in Cipro there, had a pretty good game on the weekend as well. We've got all the makings there to be, you know, a really good side, and we think that our best footy, with all those players going through there, is good enough to stack up against those guys. I mean, Claremont have been the benchmark really for a long time in the competition, and you know, there's no surprise that they've been able to play finals so consistently throughout probably the last decade, really. So yeah, they're something that we're striving to chase down, I suppose. And the likes of the players you mentioned is, you know, why we think we can hopefully get there, if not this year, definitely in the future.
Massive game for the Swans against Claremont on Saturday. Andrew, we really appreciate your time here on Around the Waffle. All the best to the side. It's a huge game. Thanks for your time, mate.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Great work. Thanks.
That was Andrew Pruyn, the coach of the Swan Districts Football Club. Massive game it certainly is going to be.
Yeah, it's huge. And, you know, they're not in a privileged position where they can afford to drop any games. But in a way, in fact, not in a way, it is important that they're playing Claremont, because if they want any chance to play their part in September, then they need to beat teams above them, and Claremont's the one that they can knock out. So.
And I have to agree with the both of you as well. I mean, Swan District supporters, they get loud, but their passion and their dedication is just brilliant. I did their game against Claremont back in round 6, brilliant crowd, and my golly, you could ride every emotion with them, whether you're in the box or in the outer. Simply a great experience for the Swan supporters.
Oh, it's awesome, and we're in an interesting time in WA footy, I think, where we have seen numbers in the WAFL sort of wane a little bit, but I can tell you absolutely adamantly that Swan Districts are a club that, you know, those guys on the outer, and like I've told you, you know, I speak about this tongue-in-cheek a little bit, the Golden Grunt, but my uncle's one of them, and he tells me every week, you know, he gives me the rundown on the games, and they just love it, and it's more than a game to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they all... You know, they've all got their work, their families and their life, but they come together once a week. And even my uncle, who's actually, you know, he's interstate and has been living there for a little bit, but they still call each other when they miss the game. And so that sort of camaraderie is really important. And you could hear Andrew talk about it, which is why it's so important to him. It was really nice to hear, to be honest. And
absolutely.
So, whilst it's a funny little award, the Golden Grunt, because he burps all the time, but it's a really important connector between club, players and supporters, and they've been there for a long time, I think since the 70s.
Absolutely sensational. We love it here in the WAFL scene, that community spirit that brings everybody together no matter what club you support. Of course, that game and also every game in round 19 is live, free and in full on the AFL app this weekend. This is Around the Waffle, Paul Persick and Mark Foreman. Let's get into the games for a massive round 19 coming up. The first one, Claremont and Swan Districts at Revo Fitness Stadium on Saturday. Claremont have lost their last 4 games. Swan Districts have won their last 4 games. It is going to be a danger game for both teams in their own right. Claremont, they can't drop this game, nor can Swan Districts. What a cracker this one's going to be.
Yeah, it will. And yeah, look, they're in free fall, Claremont. And Swan Districts are quite the opposite. They're going up and up. So it will be a good one. And I think, like I keep saying, 4 weeks ago, this would have been a foregone conclusion, but not so much now. And we're just waiting we have been waiting for a Claremont response, and it just hasn't come. So I'm going to tip Swan Districts.
You going with the Swans?
Yeah,
you going with the Swans?
Yeah, I love the work they've put in. But you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Claremont won. But in saying that, their pattern of form is just not good.
Well, Clermont's home record has been good. Of course, their first loss only came back in round 15 against West Perth. Clermont, they've just got to find a way to get back that continuity from midfield into attack, because they've had a couple of forwards go in and out of the side. Only Talon DeLacy came back last week after a spell in reserves. Tyron Smallwood missed that game with concussion. He's expected to be back in that game against Swan Districts. Jarvis Pena is hoping to return after a few knee problems last week. So that could be a huge difference for both sides heading into this game. Clermont, they're at home. It's back against the wall stuff, and they've got the talent to do so. They've just got to execute. Swan Districts, what a brand of footy they're playing. I think it's a much more polished brand of footy they're playing over the last 4 weeks than Clermont, and I think their polish and discipline is going to be a key, and that's why I'm going to tip Swan Districts as well.
Hey, there you go.
I'm going the Swans as well.
We've agreed.
We have agreed for once.
And like we heard Andrew Pruyn say, that they'll hope to get Jarvis Pena back. He's a really important player for Swans, and Swan Districts at full strength will absolutely take it up to Clermont. We've both picked them, so let's see how we go.
What a game it's going to be, though, over at Revo Fitness Stadium on Saturday at 2:10. They've played a few crackers in the last couple of years, Swan Districts and Clermont. This one, we hope, will be no exception. Now we go to the second game of the round, Perth taking on East Fremantle at Mineral Resources Park. The Sharks, if they win, they will sew up top spot on the ladder.
Yeah, they will, and, they absolutely should, looking at, your top versus second bottom. So it probably should be reasonably straightforward for East Fremantle, but of course you don't walk into any game of footy with that mindset, and they'll just look to execute the things they've been putting together that have got them into this privileged position where...
Especially, against this Perth side who haven't been good this season, but they showed a lot of competitiveness.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say, particularly last week. They played quite well for 3 quarters, and it was only late that Swan Districts were able to sort of pull away a little bit. So important. Every game's important. You can always take something out of them, and Perth will just be looking to build, and I think they've sort of been experimenting here and there, but they're just looking to get a bit of unity within their group, and we've seen some positive signs. So it's not all doom and gloom for Perth either.
Absolutely, but I reckon they will find it tough against a very solid East Fremantle side, who maybe without Dylan O'Reilly, though. Of course, he did his hamstring on the round 18 game at the WACA. Jonathan Marsh, who knows when he's going to be back. He's had a back problem. Milan Murdoch, obviously, there's a bit of a question mark around him as well. So East Fremantle, even without those players, I reckon can still get it done against Perth. I'm going to go with the Sharks by around about 5 goals, I reckon. It'll be a good game over there. Perth will give a good account of themselves. They've got good firepower in the midfield, but East Fremantle, they'll just have too much class.
I hope it will be a good game, but I'm going to go a little more than that. I reckon it'll be about 50 points.
50 points.
And I think you can... they certainly won't rush players back for this game. It's one that they will expect to win regardless of their personnel, and perhaps that is the privileged position they've put themselves in. They can maybe not rush players back that might be touch and go. So East Fremantle for me I'll go 50.
Oh, East Fremantle, of course, looking for 8 wins in a row. It hasn't happened since the latest stages of 08 and into 2009 as well. It should be a very interesting contest, though, at Mineral Resources Park. And then we go to game number 3 on Saturday at Lane Group Stadium, Peel Thunder and West Perth. This one is a real biggie. For Peel Thunder, it's a must-win to keep the double chance hopes alive. For West Perth, it is win or bust, as it has been for the last 5 weeks. But, of course, West Perth will do so. Will head into this game without Aaron Black, who's got a hamstring injury. But they've got enough depth to look at their side and go, okay, we can go to Mandurah and take out this game. Right off the bat, I'm going with West Perth. I reckon they can get the job done, even without Aaron Black. Their depth is coming good at the right time, but Peel Thunder are going to make it very, very tough, especially when you have Bailey Banfield running right up forward, and also Brady Gray starting to find some good form. Blair Bell, will he come back from back soreness? A lot of stories surrounding this game.
Yeah, it's no mean feat to go down to Lane Group and come away with a win. So it's a huge challenge for West Perth, but I'm probably with you as well. Just looking at the results and looking at the way they've gone about it, they seem like a team on a mission. Unfortunately for them, it's not in their hands, but all they can do is their part of the deal. And I think they will go down to Peel and have a win. Take nothing away from Peel. We spoke earlier in the week to Brady Gray, who is rightly so very, very pleased with what Peel's put together, and certainly not saying it'll be easy. But West Perth are giving themselves every chance to knock Claremont out of that 4, and I reckon they might. Do it. It's hard to cover Aaron Black, but like we said earlier in the week too, they've got some players who are playing some really good footy. They also had a couple of down players last week. I saw at the bottom of the list who, Keegan Knott was one I saw. He didn't get much of the footy.
Well, he's only just come back from the reserve, so he was a little bit rusty and a little bit unpolished out there in the forward line. But if he does get selected for the league, I reckon he'll have a lot of faith in his team, and they'll have a lot of faith, the coaching staff, a lot of faith in Noddy to get the job done and add a little extra depth in the forward line.
Yep, and he's a danger as well, as is Tyler Keitel and
Bailey Banfield for Peel Thunder.
Yep, yeah. So there's a lot of dangerous forwards in this game, actually. But Blair Bell, like you mentioned, will he come back from that back injury? We'll see. He is huge for Peel.
Massive.
I got to see him firsthand a couple of weeks ago. Huge in every sense of the word. He's a big body and he's a big presence. So will be a cracker. I'm going to go West Perth, but that is genuinely a toss of the coin. I'll say under a goal. I'll say 6 points.
What a game that one's going to be south of the river. And by the way, you can see that game live on Channel 7 as well. It'll be an absolute beauty. Fourth game between East Perth and West Coast at Leederville Oval on Saturday. East Perth, of course, their season, I think that loss to East Fremantle was a bit of a shot in the arm, so to speak. I reckon they can recover from it very quickly, but they're up against the West Coast side who gave a good account of themselves last week against Subiaco. But East Perth, you'd expect them to bounce back, especially the form against the Eagles over the last couple of meetings.
Yeah, starting to see some, over the past month, we've started to see some positive signs from West Coast. That game against Peel was a bit of a blip on the radar, but besides that, we have seen some good things. So hopefully that continues. East Perth, they're strong. They're super strong, and they took it right up to East Fremantle. And again, isn't it funny? That's the difference between being first for East Perth and fourth. Is dropping that game. So they will win this one super easily, unfortunately. But again, it's about system. So when you're playing those sort of lowly teams, they will have their plans that they need to do, and they'll just look to execute that and get in good habits.
We talked about Mitch Crowden, being East Perth's best. They did have a few players down on form, especially midfield. Brayshaw and Schumacher were held quite well by the East Perth, by the East Fremantle midfield, rather. I expect them to see plenty of the football. Expect them to respond in a big, big way, because after they get the job done, and I'm going to go with East Perth as well quite easily, they have West Perth in Joondalup up, and I reckon they'll build themselves up quite nicely for that game against their arch rivals in round 20.
Yeah, and they always do. Those games carry a little bit extra. But yeah, and look, you can't be up all the time. So it was, I suppose the sign of a good side is when some of your better players are down, that somebody picks up the slack, and that seems to be what's happening at East Perth. So they're building really strongly towards the right end of the year.
East Perth for both of us over there on Saturday at Leederville Oval, and then the final game of round 19, South Fremantle and Subiaco over at Fremantle Oval at 2:10. South Fremantle, they've lost their last 6 games at their home ground. Their record has been pretty poor, to be frank, this year over there, and have had the longest since an 8-game losing streak back in 1997. But they have won the last 2 games at home against Subiaco, including an 88-point win last year. So the home record against the Lions isn't too bad. But, you're having a look at their performance in the last 2 weeks. Their forward line has been exposed with the lack of depth that's there. Their midfield hasn't shown enough desperation. When you're coming up against the likes of Subiaco, who've got Schofield, Kitchen, Gyro, the Hickmott boys in great form, I'm afraid this one is going to be one-way traffic. Subiaco, especially through their midfield and their informed forward line, will really hold the key up there at Fremantle Oval.
Yeah, I tend not to look too much at history. The only exception was the Fremantle Derby, when there was that weird 15 in a row. But so I completely agree with you. I think Subi will go there and do the job, because they're having a stellar season. They've got talent all around the park, and they're building as well at the right time of year. And with those forwards, Ben Sokol is one who's so good to watch, and he seems to be hitting the scoreboard pretty hard at the right time too. So yeah, Subiaco I think will be far too strong for South Fremantle, despite, as you said, that they haven't travelled there all that well recently, but I really don't think that will matter.
If South Fremantle are going to cause a blowout in this game, on the other hand, they have to have Jimmy Miller not only playing in ruck, but playing back up forward. That's where he's more suited. Having said that, of course, you've got Higgins out for the season. You've also got Solomon James, who's blossoming into a real prominent ruckman for the Bulldogs, out for the season with a knee. So that leaves South Fremantle very short on ruckman. But having said that, Jimmy Miller has really lived up to the task that he's got at hand. So he could hold the key for South Fremantle.
Yeah, he could. And it's just unfortunate that they have been struck down with injury, because you kind of have to rob Peter to pay Paul when you lose a player, or when you lose a couple of players like you mentioned. So unfortunately, he can't be everywhere at once, Jimmy Miller. But yeah, he does hold a key, and I think Subiaco will. Yeah, I mean, that's something that they'll have to look at to try and nullify him. But in saying that, Subiaco have a pretty reasonable ruckman running around there, Paul.
Yep,
so
Zach Clark.
Absolutely. So second in our Around the Waffle Player of the Year votes, and probably, to be honest, leading the Sandover medal. So it's a tall order for South Fremantle, and Subiaco far too strong for me. I'll go 50 points as well there.
Yeah, I'll say Subiaco as well by about 8 goals. And so for once, we've all gone the same teams in a round. It's a miracle.
It is. And there's nothing I can give you hell about next week when we do our review.
No doubt about it. Now, just before we wrap up today's edition of Around the Waffle, of course, it was announced earlier in the week by the West Australian Football Commission that the big dance is back on the big stage. Hey. And what a way they're going to celebrate it. Festival of Footy at Optus Stadium on the 24th of September. Michael Roberts, the CEO of the WA Football Commission, saying this year's grand final will be like no other. There's going to be a lot of entertainment, and that's just not the game itself out on the field. It's fun for the whole family, and I have to say, there's going to be a lot of them that will be witnessing not only a great game, but a great day out of for football as well. After what we saw last year up at Leederville Oval, turning the streets into Footyville, and with the grand final back on the big stage, they are going to really ramp it up this year.
Yeah, it'll be good to see it there, and going the Sunday again, so that the standalone, there won't be any AFL, which is important. And just looking at the ladder, I think we've got a cracking final series coming up. It's to the point where I honestly think anyone in that top 5 could beat any other team on their given day.
Absolutely.
So, shaping up to be a cracker of a final series, and that's exciting news about the Festival of Footy.
And I think it'll really ramp up the crowd as well. We had just over 30,000 in 2021, which was an excellent crowd given the conditions that they were that day for the South Freo Subiaco Grand Final. Intermittent rain. Hopefully it'll be weather-wise a little bit better this year, and hopefully we get a really good crowd over there for the Grand Final, because I think that finals race, as you said, is going to be so exciting given how competitive the season has been, and that sort of finals monopoly where we see a lot of these teams like South Freo, Subiaco, Claremont, West Perth regularly in the finals could be broken this year. It's going to be so interesting and so fascinating to hear what the WAFC will put together next as far as the grand final is concerned, how that Festival of Footy will be ramped up. It's incredibly exciting.
It is, and the best thing is when so often in finals you sort of go, oh yeah, in terms of waffle, maybe 4th or 5th are just making up the numbers. Well, that's just not the case this year, where in the AFL, 7th or 8th are making up the numbers. So it's just not the case here, where we can get any team having a win on their day.
I think I'll go on record and say this. A lot of teams and a lot of people have said if you finish 1, 2, or 3 in the finals, you've got a chance for the premiership. I reckon anywhere who finish in the 5, all the teams that finish in the 5 this year will have a shot. I reckon if there's a premiership winner that comes from either 4th or 5th, it'll be well deserved, because it's been such an open season and unpredictable as well. So I think whoever finishes in that 5, who secures those 5 spots, all have a chance to win the premiership. I don't think 4th or 5th will be making up the numbers this year.
Certainly not. And, hypothetically, if you stop the ladder right now, East Perth is in 4th. Well, you would not want to run into East Perth on any day. So, perfect example, and we'll see who gets that 5th spot, but it's going to be awesome.
Of course, still 2 rounds to go before we sort out that final 5. Forey, great job as always. Look forward to seeing you here on Tuesday to review the round.
Look forward to it, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Forey, and thank you to all our listeners and viewers for tuning in to today's edition of Around the Waffle. Just remember, we're on socials as well. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Give us a big thumbs up. We really do appreciate it, and like our pages and all our content that we put together for you. Don't forget, Tuesday, we're going to review round 19. It's a huge weekend of football coming up. Don't miss it.